you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music.
Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. Matt Guy here. That means it is a musicast for your listening pleasure.
When you did your intro, then did you stumble a bit? Cause it's been a while, so was it a moment of
I haven't got my reps in for podcasting full stop. I think I did about 2 or 3 for Wolves Fancast last year. And for reasons I didn't do a lot of commentary either in the second half of the season, so I haven't done a lot of I haven't been in this garage to do anything other than get baby shit for at least for ages. So yeah, it is all a bit slightly strange, but fun nonetheless. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. It's gone too warm this weekend. I don't like it, but here we are. I mean, as you said before the pod started, we are a couple of vest boys as it stands right now.
Yeah, we are. Stu is in Whitby. I don't know if he does anything Dracula related when he's there. I don't think he does. We went to Whitby not that long ago and it was really nice. And it wasn't mega Dracula heavy either, like I thought it was going to be. And there was a few alternative shots because they have that Whitby goth best and stuff. But then again, had Ozzy Osbourne died by that point? I don't think he had. So I guess I imagine that might have ramped up post.
Probably. Yeah, I suspect there'll be lots of Bat memorabilia and shit up there now.
Yeah, maybe. But we'll get onto that in a minute. As I said, it's a music cast, hence the reason why you're hearing me do the hosting spiel. But it is, believe it or not, as I heard on the radio earlier, National Duran Duran Appreciation Day, apparently.
Apparently that was a thing?
I didn't know that was a thing. I don't know what this date has that's specific to Duran Duran. I'm sure there's got to be something. But yeah, the 10th of August is Duran Duran Appreciation. It's an internet phenomena, I think. I don't know why it's today. Maybe somebody can tell us once.
Okay, I've just Googled it while you were talking. On that date in 1985, when lead singer Simon Le Bon was involved in a near-fatal boating accident.
Wow.
So that's why, because he nearly died today. 40 years ago.
There you go. Are you a great lover of new romantic music?
I don't mind a bit of it, to be fair. It's all right. There's the odd band and the odd track, probably more so than band. I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of Duran Duran, but the Reflex is a belter. There's good songs rather than good bands, I think.
I had been to a night at the Victoria in Birmingham that was an 80s night. And I didn't think it was too long before it descended into deep cuts and B-sides. when it comes to that. Like, why do people look like they're having a good time? But I always think back to that Austin Powers movie when he's talking through like what happened, like while he was cryogenically frozen, and they're like, and the 80s happened and nothing happened. And then it was then like moving on into the 90s and stuff like that. I don't mind a bit of new romantic, to be fair. And that kind of electronica kind of movement. I always think back to, I probably said it on this platform before. I would have loved to have been there, like when the Eurythmics weren't ironic and not funny, because it's not funny, but like when it was a song that had just come out and people were hearing it for the first time, like Sweet Dreams and that. And like how that would have landed in clubs and stuff at the time. Whereas you hear it now, it almost pretty much goes into cheese now.
It's a song that you hear in Reflex or whatever the name of the 80s bar now is. Like, yeah, it's kitsch, isn't it? I think is the thing.
Yeah.
Annie Lennox isn't kitsch. She's kind of cool, but
well, we'll come on to pop a bit later. As we're here to maybe defend pop. Two unlikely people to defend pop, admittedly, but we're gonna give it a bit. And Stu, of all people, would have been the perfect person to do it,
wouldn't he?
But I think, we'll get onto that. But in music news, there's a few like items of music news that are dotted around. Well, there's loads, to be fair, but the ones I wanted to hone in on, firstly, are the juggernaut that is the Oasis tour continues. A friend of mine has just seen them at Murrayfield. Is it Murrayfield that they've just played?
Edinburgh. Is that the one?
Yeah, they went to Edinburgh, and I think they're now they must be in Dublin now, I think, doing a show. Maybe it was Edinburgh, I'm not sure. Either way, had a great time, really enjoyed it. You know, the term biblical keeps coming out in terms of people seeing it and sharing memes and stuff like that as well. From your perception, Andy, is the tour going how you expected it to go? From what you've seen of clips and stuff, is it par for the course? Did you think that they would sound, admittedly as good as they sound, and it's kind of going the way it's going without, any sign of hiccups and stuff? Did you think that was how it was going to go?
I did, to be fair. Like, I know we all joked about it when it was initially announced that they won't make it to the first show because they'll fall out because that's their history. But there's a lot of money riding on it. So there'll be a lot of people making sure that they behave themselves. Like, I don't think if it was left to Liam and Noel to sort it, it would be a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
But the management and stuff, they're not going to let their investment go down the shitter. So, yeah. We heard a few clips of them together pre the tour and they sounded a bit ropey. It was always going to be 50-50 because it's not like you put an album on and it sounds the same as hearing them live. They've always been a band who've had a live sound and a recorded sound. But by all accounts, their performances have been top notch and have sounded excellent. But we've seen a few clips and stuff on Twitter doing the rounds, and they do sound good, to be fair to them.
Yeah, I can't deny that at all. A lot of people come away from it saying how great it is, and I think the difference, what has been not most surprising, but a lot of people have commented on that there's a younger generation now that seemingly have come through that are there and enjoying it, etc. That it's easy to find some nostalgia alive in 25 and it being, a group of people that are reliving a youth and tying into nostalgia. But there's a younger generation that are there as well that are really enjoying it. There was a leak that went around on social media about a leak tour, I guess, extension, including a residency at Nebworth. Obviously, it'll be 30 years next year of the Nebworth shows that are kind of fabled now in British music history. The owners of Nebworth House had come out and said that, quite tongue-in-cheek, that Wembley would be a good warm-up show for Nebworth, and it would be like the party of all parties. But the band's spokespeople have come out and said, well, it's not happening. There's no plans to extend it past the current tour. And obviously the current tour has dotted worldwide dates. It's not like a full, not like Ghost are doing 50 US dates and then they're going to Japan and doing their date, anything like that. Do you think it happens though in 26? The stars would align nicely for it to happen. But do you think it will happen?
I think they'll get to the end of the tour and then see where they are.
Mm.
There's obviously a clamour for more Oasis because there's still a lot of people who didn't get tickets who wanted to see them. And of course, you're going to get the people who've seen them on this tour and will want to see them again. So I don't think that will go away. But if they get to the end of it, they're going to want to see whether or not do they want to carry on doing it? Do they want to record something new?
Mhm.
I think there'll be a few things. I think 2026 might be a bit too soon for that.
I think you might be right. I think there's probably an element of let's get through this, see how we feel afterwards, reflect and everything else about it, and then see where Glastonbury's having a year off as well. But I spoke about Oasis in not always like kind terms over the last like year or so. However, are Oasis too big for Glastonbury? I know that sounds like a bizarre thing to say, but are Oasis too
Potentially.
big for Glastonbury?
I think Oasis could do a weekend residency. Like they could do Glastonbury and probably sell twice as many tickets as
Yeah.
Glastonbury would. So to put them on a festival lineup, it would be them taking a step down almost.
Yeah, I know it sounds bizarre to say that, but I genuinely think that is true in the sense that they could play at Nebworth or play in a similar size venue the same weekend of Glastonbury and outsell Glastonbury, I think,
Yeah,
comfortably.
I think so.
And I don't know, it's a strange one really, but who knows? Well, we'll soon know. These things take a lot of time to plan, so they'll be kind of sorted sooner rather than later. You'd guess if it was going into 26. But
I'd have thought so, yeah.
by all accounts, the clips and stuff that you hear are sounding pretty good for a band that play at a really slow, plodding tempo. Yeah, so that's my only dig now. I won't dig it. Speaking of slow, plodding tempos, the Arctic Monkeys are, in other music news, rumoured to be gearing up for a new album. I didn't know this, but every time they have released an album, or a lot of times they've released an album, they've actually created a company to attribute to the recording process, like a company house. And it's happened again, but in the name of the members of Arctic Monkeys, I believe it is. So Bang Bang Recordings, a new recording company in the last hour, is one of the tweets that came out for the Arctic Monkeys Australian, I guess, account. They've really created a recording company each time a new album is underway. The company includes all members of the band. So it's been done again now. Now, the Arctic Monkeys have come off the back of two real departures of a sound in Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino and The Car. Now, you could argue that Arctic Monkeys have made a bit of a career change in their sound along the way. I think the difference is it was kind of hit after hit after hit, regardless of that sound changing. And much like, David Bowie and other artists, it doesn't always hit, even if the name of the game is changing the sound along. From your point of view, we talked about the Arctic Monkeys in group chats and stuff as being one of the only bands that have even nipping at the heels of Oasis in terms of recent influence on, modern indie rock pop music. Do Arctic Monkeys have to go back to basics or go back to a sound that they're accustomed to have any chance of staying in that kind of top 10 British bands of all time status, do you think? Or what's your view on this? Or have they jumped the shark, in your view?
There's a bit of it, but then I'm that indie kid who hated Kings of Leon when they went commercial. So there's always going to be part of me that's I preferred them before they released their first album, that kind of thing. And each sound has kind of been a little bit of a betrayal of the one that's come before.
Mm-hmm.
But they got to the point with Casino. I haven't listened to the full album because I was so bored as I was listening to it. But I'm thinking, jumping the shark probably is the right term, because what have you got left to do now? You've done everything that I imagine that you've got capable in you. And now you're doing dirge pop. This doesn't fit. I don't know if they can go back though.
Mm.
If they take a step backwards to some of their earlier stuff, is that really going to ring true? Like they can't do another whatever people say I am or whatever the name of that first album. Like they can't do that because they haven't been kids off a Sheffield council estate.
Yep.
20 years at this point. So what have they got left to say? They kind of need to evolve again. They need on, and I think it needs to be bigger and brasher because they've kind of gone the opposite to that. I think they need to come out all guns blazing a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, bigger and brasher is the word. I'm not saying they need to do that Robbie Williams swing when you're winning kind of sound, but they kind of needs to go kind of balls out. Like, you know, I didn't realize how polarizing AM was until I kind of mentioned it in the Fancast group chat once, and some people were like, it was an awful album," and I'm like, "What? Really? I thought it was a great big arena-sized album, you know, with some really big bombastic tracks on there." But I think people because when they first hit the scene, I wasn't, you know, absolutely enamored by them. So I don't think I felt that sense of betrayal that you might have felt from that original sound. Whereas AM, I absolutely loved. I even thought that, you know, Suck It and See had some I mean, Humbug of all of them. I'm not counting the last two albums as in there. It's a different band.
Yeah.
So I thought Humbug is probably the worst out of those albums for me from a sound point of view. It was really miserable, and it just doesn't hit many of the high notes that I thought the others did. But I think the Arctic Monkeys have a job on their hands because there was that Glastonbury performance that they got panned for, which was in the middle of that like crooner singing style of Alex Turner that everybody kind of jumped on and hated. But, you know, if you're in a band with egos like that, do you double down? Is that what you do now? Like, do you go? Because you're right, you can't go back to that kind of working class hero vibe. You could go down that arena rock kind of vibe as well, but
Yeah.
it's from a pride point of view. I think they would probably find that difficult after what they've done to then go back to something that was, you know, prior to this experiment that went wrong. So, you know, maybe it'll go down the more electronica route. Yeah, it could be in like a natural way. I'm not sure.
I think it's interesting that I think every stage after the first album, it's been kind of 50-50. Like even Favourite Worst Nightmare, even that was like it had its detractors. I think at every stage, the new album, it's brought new people on it and it's lost some of the older people just throughout their career. I mean, I remember Mardy Bum off their first album, which should have been an indicator really of what to expect, because the demo version of it was kind of cheeky. It was libertines in jean jackets rather than leathers. That was who the Arctic Monkeys were. And then they re-recorded it for Whatever People Say I Am. And he was crooning in it. And I'm like, one, he didn't need re-recording because the demo was perfect. And two, why have you changed it? Because you've made it sound so much weaker than what it was prior. And the fact that he's now basically become a crooner is not a surprise if you've been there from the start, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm morbidly curious to see what the sound will be like, and you know, I'm looking forward to hearing it, if only to scratch an itch of what could be. You know what I mean? We'll see. And we're a bit behind the times really with this as news, but I haven't had really an opportunity to talk about Ozzy Osbourne passing away. Obviously, meant so much to so many people, and it was off the back of the Back to the Beginning show at Villa Park. And I don't know why I even bothered explaining this to Sam, because I usually wouldn't like get the reference, but I was like, oh, this was like where the Ultimate Warrior did Raw and then he died. And she's like, what? I was like, yeah, he did that show on Raw, like a comeback show, and then he died. And she was like, what? And I was like, oh, never mind, don't worry about it. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, Sharon Osbourne came out like a day or two ago and said that that number 190 million was absolute bullshit in terms of money raised for charity, which I thought was a bit of an odd statement to come out with. I don't know if they ever came out with who the band was that they ended up pulling out. I think the rumor was it was Motley Crue, who yeah, there was a band that allegedly had like asked. So I think all the other bands performed for free because it was a charity event, and because of the huge nature of the show, it's kind of like you do it,
pro bono.
Pro bono, exactly, that's the word. But yeah, I think Motley Crue were asking about their fee, and that's what got them kind of in and off the show. I don't know that to be fact. Don't sue us, Motley Crue. Allegedly, that's what gets you out of all these things, doesn't it? But in terms of kind of like Ozzy Osbourne, obviously very sad for like the rock music scene and Birmingham and England in general, Britain in general, in terms of the music. What I will say was I did find and I don't know if this is on the back of the Jota stuff, Diogo Jota, if for those who aren't really football aficionados, former Wolves and Liverpool player who tragically died along with his brother in a car crash. There was a lot of talk around the media element of his funeral and the funeral of the pair of them. But the Ozzy Osbourne side of things, I find really uncomfortable watching the clips because there was like crowds of people outside whilst like Sharon and the family were going into the ceremony and kind of cheering and stuff like that. I don't know. I found it a little bit tough to kind of like to watch that kind of stuff. It was it felt like a bit of a circus.
It's difficult because it is such a private family moment, but at the same time, like, I mean, you're a big fan of that genre of music, so like, is he a family member to people who are into
100%.
metal? Like, is it the case of that?
Yeah, very much so. Like for people that I've never professed to be like a huge Black Sabbath fan in the same way that other people are. But in terms of like what it meant to a lot of people, and even like post like the Osbournes and then the MTV side of things, which people were really against in many ways. Yeah, from an influence point of view, it's absolutely huge. So I guess people are doing it, in their own way, are kind of seeing a family member off, which is, tough for people. And it's one of those things where like you don't see the wider effects until then you start to see what, like, as a country, people that mention it and it grows and grows and grows in terms of like the news story, etc. And then of course Hulk Hogan had to say, "It's not going to work for me, brother," and then he ended up going as well, but to much less, I think, adoration and love.
It was quite a fun few days on Twitter.
Yeah,
When Vince dies, I think it'll be even more fun. But
the meme will be, will be. Well, I suppose it does kind of tie into Musiccast because he played the saxophone on that Vince McMahon single, or at least on the video.
He did, and if you were to believe him, he turned down Metallica to be their bassist.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And there's some absolutely brilliant things that he claimed to have done.
It was he worked 400 days in 1 year because flying to and from Japan. He time traveled. Like,
incredible.
Yeah, just full of shit. Incredible.
Okay, well, let's move on to some questions then. So, I have a question for you, Andy, that I feel is a bit of a loaded question because I think I already know how you feel about this band, because one of the many memes that we share in the Fancast group chat of you pulling a face is when we were talking about this band, I think, if memory serves me well.
It was, yeah.
But I want to know why Muse are not the biggest alt rock band in the UK. And now I'm going to preface this by saying they have big hooks in their songs, big bombastic hooks. They have really unique vocals. Matt Bellamy's vocals, you would be able to pick him out of a lineup. It's a unique voice. They actually very technically gifted musicians. It's not your run-of-the-mill cookie-cutter music, paint by numbers at all. They have all the ingredients to be the biggest alt-rock band in the UK. but they're not. They're not at all. They're nowhere near it. Why is that? Do you think? Why don't they? When they've got all the ingredients, but they don't have a title, why are they not respected in that circle? Do you think?
You can tell me if I'm close to the mark here. Are they from like an Oxbridge University? Because they give the air of coming from wealth, and I don't know if they do,
Yeah, I think they're probably right. I think,
but they don't have this authenticity that you associate with that genre of music. They feel a little bit commercial to me.
I mean, they're from Devon, which
Mm,
I already think of Second Holiday Home when I think of
mm,
Devon. So so they're not. I don't. They've never come across. They've never tried to be a. We've had a rough upbringing from the streets kind of vibe about them. So I don't know if that is because they've never attempted to be that. I don't know if then that translates to them not being authentic, in my opinion, anyway.
mm. And like, I don't think it's a bad thing that you don't have to have come from poverty to make great art.
Mhm.
But I feel like when you come from privilege, it kind of makes people give you a bit of a side eye.
Mm.
And I think when it comes to Muse, I've always had that impression of them that they've not really lived. And I could be way off base here, but that's very much how I've always felt about them. And I feel like when they had their big moments, like Supermassive Black Hole and stuff,
Mhm.
they were going up against better bands like Arctic Monkeys and the likes. They were going up against bands who were at their peak. So I
Yeah.
think that they were always in the shadow of other bands. And they also had this thing where pop isn't the right word, but they did attract a crowd of, pop princesses and dickheads in white shirts. Like, they never felt real in the way that your Oasis did, that the Libertines did, that the Arctic Monkeys did. They've never really broken through and had that moment. But they feel like Yes to me. Like, if they did an album with Rick Wakeman, I wouldn't be fucking shocked. Do you know what I mean? It's just not.
I hear you. I mean, I think they've been likened in the early days to being kind of swimming. If there was a Venn diagram, they'd overlap like with Radiohead. And I've always, I hate to say this, I've always thought Radiohead are massively overrated. Like,
Mm,
it's never really clicked for me, Radiohead, and I've always thought that air of privilege that not necessarily with them, but with their fan base, I've always thought, oh, these are proper wanky. Like, I just don't
it
get it with Radiohead. And they're like,
yeah.
there are better examples of bands like Radiohead that are out there, I think, as well. But then again, I was never into like Massive Attack and stuff like that either, and that side of
Yes,
that
no.
sphere. But with Muse, like I've always like even they've gone far more like rock and almost verging on metal at times. You never hear Muse in places like The Planet or anywhere like that. But they've got these huge, massive songs that you know if you hear it on the radio, you know what it is immediately. But I never hear them out and about. I think it's just a bizarre like I don't. Are they the Coldplay of that genre in the
Th
sense that
Yeah,
that
I mean,
sense of they're not cool as a band either, I guess?
no, I mean, I was before doing this when you put the questions in the chat.
We don't do that, Andy. That's not beyond the fourth wall.
I googled Muse because it's been a long time since I've paid any attention to them, and there was pictures of Bellamy in like a pink and blue leather with some kind of 80s shades and 80s looking gloves. And I'm like, you look so much like should be in the fucking Killers, not in a rock band who were, verging on superstardom but never quite made it.
Hmm.
And they've always had that about them where they've always felt a little bit desperate, which I've always felt with the Killers as well. Like, they feel like they want it too much.
Hmm.
And I think when you're into music, you can smell that, and that can be quite off-putting. And let's be honest, if you smell shit in Planet and it's coming from the music, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, for what it's worth for Muse, for me, like I don't think what has helped is that I think they've appealed. I, I think they've tried to appeal a bit too broadly to too many people too
Yeah.
much of the time, because I saw them headline a V festival. You know, I mean, this is when V Festival was pretty decent. Like, I'm talking way back when. Like, I think that weekend it was Muse and Kings of Leon, when Kings of Leon had just brought out their third album, I think, like just before it really went to shit. And at that point, you know, you look at V and you go, well, this is painfully close to E4 and that side of things, which is clinically uncool at that point in time. Like, to be in like that E4, what was it, E4? What was the name? There was a like a music show, or just that
Simon Unruh used to do on a Saturday morning or something. I know the one you mean.
Vernon Kay was probably involved with it at that point and stuff like that. It was just, and then I always thought to myself, like, I saw them more as like a Reading and Leeds kind of band in terms of like their sound. Yeah, I don't know.
Wasn't at Leeds, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Muse. I think they've got some. I think musically, I think they've got some really great albums. I think they have their sound changes, but it doesn't change to the point where it's jarring. Some of the stuff that has come out recently, like I played a song, I put it in the group chat with you guys, Supremacy, that I think to myself, like, I don't know how anyone could listen to this and not enjoy the big bombasticness of it all, because that's what Biffy Clyro have made a career out of. This big brash, almost big band sound. But it's just when it's Muse, it just doesn't seem to click with people, and I just don't get it. I'd love to know in the comments from people what people think of Muse and why maybe they don't click to as many people.
They're a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. I think
I could agree with that. Yeah.
Pop World 2000 to 2006. That was Makita Oliver and Simon Amstel. That was the Channel 4.
Oh, well, yeah, show. That makes me feel a bit older just thinking about that. Not fair.
Like, it mentions the Kooks on there, and I suppose Muse are the heavier version of the Kooks.
Oh, that's a low.
Like, they are bordering on landfill indie.
Oh, gosh, a dagger to my heart. That is.
Oh yeah, I know, and to go like to your Radiohead point, I sort of get it. Radiohead have got they've got the chops, I think. Like, whether you like them or not, and I'm on both camps. Like, there's some really, really good stuff and some really, really shit stuff, but people love them, and Muse have never had shooters for them. They've always just existed, I think.
You know what I think it is, a Radiohead, and right. So I've not long finished listening to Adam Buxton's second book, right, and I didn't realize how involved he was with Radiohead, like going on tour with them and stuff like that, and like being involved in that camp. Now, Adam Buxton, I think he's a very, very funny guy, right? Very funny, and I think the way he talks, I really like the way he writes. I like the way he does these things. However, if I'd have been around Adam Buxton when he was younger, I definitely would have thought he was a massive twat. Like, I could just tell by his personality, like, me and him just wouldn't click. And he defines what Radiohead is to me, if that makes any sense. Like, that public school wanky side of that genre of music. And I think that's what it is, and that's a prejudice that I like need to get over, because I have no doubt the Radiohead have some unbelievable music. But I used to think that My Chemical Romance were the worst thing going, and then I realised that the Black Parade is a close to 10 out of 10 album. So like, I know that there are, I know that, like, you know,
it was similar for me though with Radiohead, because I remember OK Computer at the time, and I was like, oh, this is just a bit, as you say, public school nonsense. It wasn't until years later listening to Pablo Honey, like, oh, actually, you do have something. But then they've got shit like Rainbows and stuff in the much later years, and like, this is just nonsense.
Yeah.
So they're a very hit and miss band for me, but when they're good, they're excellent.
Well, I'll have to revisit. We're gonna for our album Club later, if we're talking about how albums sound 20 years on or whatever, then we've got an absolute corker for you. Question 2. What is the best song with more than 2 hooks or sing-along sections? So songs that have more than kind of 2 bits that you would kind of sing in the shower, or you'd kind of get stuck as a worm, as an earworm in your head. What's the thing that you think of when you hear that?
The first thing that came to mind, and it's often the first thing, was Girls Aloud Biology.
Okay.
I don't know, I was just because it's the bit 'cause it starts with, like, proper stomping music that you can really get into, and then when the chorus kicks in, and it's got this quite a nice little hook to it, and I like both sides of it. I think that was immediate. I was like, "Oh, yeah, Biology, that's the one." And to be fair, I feel like girl bands from that period of time, like, even probably before as well, Spice Girls, Wannabe, and stuff like that, I think pop princesses like that, they made a livelihood off of just making hooky as fuck songs. Kylie, Can't Get You Out of My Head, like, that's just hook after hook. So those are the ones that came to mind. Jay-Z and Alicia Keys, Empire State, I think
wow.
might be the one though.
Okay. I hadn't considered that. I'm gonna have to listen to that to reacquaint myself to it. Going to Girls Aloud, where do they stand in the pantheon? Are they able to crawl out of the shadow of Spice Girls, do you think, in the long run? Will they all, I mean, they'll never, Spice Girls they're the oasis of pop. They're so closely linked in the time frame and everything as well. They're the oasis of girl pop. But do Girls Aloud get the respect you think that they deserve? Do you think enough people think about because you've kind of got Spice Girls, you've got Girls Aloud, and you've got you got Little Mix, who kind of like that's kind of the natural order of things. I think in many ways. Do you think that they will stand the test of time, Girls Aloud?
I don't know, because, like, musically, I think they probably are better than Spice Girls. I couldn't speak to Little Mix. I don't know enough of their stuff, to be perfectly honest. But then again, I suppose Oasis musically aren't the best band in the world, but they are the biggest of that time at least. Girls Aloud had some absolute belters of songs, and songs that are just really well constructed, and the lyrics to them are actually very good as well, and probably better than anything Spice Girls did. But Spice Girls are just the zeitgeist, aren't they?
Yeah.
They came at the very much the right time when we've always had girl bands, we know that, but they took it from girl bands to just being something on a complete other level. I think if they came out shoulder to shoulder, I think Girls Aloud would probably have done better, maybe. But years later, they're, like you said, in the shadows. They're always going to be in the shadows of the Spices.
Yeah, of the Spices. So mine was a song that I just can't get out of my head at the minute, to the point where it defined the question. The answer came before the question. Isn't that Jeopardy? Is that what Jeopardy is in the US?
Yeah.
And that's Female of the Species by Space. I can't stop listening to that song. And because you have the obviously the it's not even really the chorus, but the Female of the Species is more deadlier than the male. Shock, shock, horror, horror is like people just sing out of nowhere. And then you've got the chorus it's not really the chorus, but the kind of the How Can Heaven Hold a Place for Me, and that whole swingy side of it as well. It's such a catchy song. And then I look down and I think, well, this should have been the biggest band ever that came out during that time, because if they're bringing out stuff like this in 1966, but 96, not 66, of course. And then I guess Britpop swallows up acts like this, I guess, in many ways, because it wasn't Britpop. It was a more alt sound, I guess, in many ways.
Yeah,
than
they're sort of the successors to the Lars, I suppose.
Yeah, and you look down at their kind of chart, their chart history, and outside of that album that they released, that was Spiders, that had this song on. they've had a few kind of top 20s in the UK, but never really tickled in the way that song did. They had, you know, that song Female Switch was the only time they got into the American charts as well.
Oh,
I
right.
mean, if this was a question of what is the biggest one hit wonder or what's the best one hit wonder, like this might have been up there as well for me. But
Oh, I don't know. Space have got a couple of decent tracks. Like Neighborhood is a belter, and Ballad of Tom Jones with Harris Matthews from Catatonia.
There's loads I want to take away. You gave me an album to listen to for Music Club, didn't you? It was it The Cribs?
The Cribs, Men's Needs, Women's Needs, whatever. I think it
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Yeah, there's a load that I want to listen to at the minute. Like the problem is for me at the moment, I've gone absolutely balls deep on podcasts and audiobooks that like my to the point where I'm worried about my musical numbers come Spotify Wrapped in like come the end of the year, because I've got really into like the goal hanger stuff, like the rest is entertainment and politics and money and all that kind of stuff. But they're just so damn listenable. I need to I'm posting rookie numbers for music at the minute. So speaking of kind of Girls Aloud and things of that nature, question 3 simply, I want you to defend pop. Why is pop slop, Andy? Why do people turn their nose to pop? Because take that pop music, add 20 years on it, it becomes cheese, it becomes everyone's favorite genre. You know, pop world reflex and whatever they will become as the decade, you know, changes. Big business and people love it, and people love cheese. And, you know, dance floors up and down, Caucasian weddings across the land are full of pop music. But why do you think pop doesn't get the respect that it probably gets in 20 years' time?
I think there is an element of sexism and probably an element of homophobia on some of it. I think it's seen as the girl's choice or the gay's choice of music.
Okay.
So I think people easily dismiss it. But I think like Elton John, people would probably argue that his 70s stuff is more rock, but actually no, that's pop. That's pure pop connection. You listen to stuff like George Michael as well. George Michael is an excellent songwriter, but at the time he's just pop. He's not one of them. But it's once you get years away and get removed from it, I think people can reevaluate music a lot better than when you're there. I think as being a man in the, as I say, in the rock scene, because that sounds pretentious, but being someone who grew up around indie music and rock music and stuff like that, you other it, I think, is the thing when it comes to pop music. So you just dismiss it because it's lightweight and it's fluff. But like I just said about Girls Aloud, actually their music is really good on a technical level as well as an emotional level. Like when you listen to some of their stuff, it can hit home. They have got some really good stuff in there. Sugar Babes, like they've got some really good pop music that you just don't see. But I do think it's because the best people at pop are gays and girls.
Do you think that the phenomena that has now kind of died a death, but the phenomena that was that Simon Cowell era of X Factor, Pop Idol, all that kind of stuff, hurt or helped the scene of pop music?
I think it hurt the legitimacy of it, because it is entirely possible to have a very good pop career with someone else writing the music for you, but without it being so forced. And that's all it was with the Simon Cowell stuff. Like it was just a forced existence. There was no art to it. And pop music should be about art, much like absolutely every other genre of music should be. But I think Simon Cowell, it wasn't art. It was just lining people's pockets. And that's why pretty much nobody from 20 odd years worth of Pop Idol and X Factor and all that bollocks, like there aren't many people who've done that and are still going now. I think there is a reason for that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. I think like Eddie, who we're going to get on this, who we're going to get on the podcast, loves talking about music. He was talking about having his children have given him an appreciation of more of pop music because of the animated scene of films that kind of have their own music. And, everybody, the irony, was talking about Bruno when the song came out, about, and there was, Moana and other films, and have had this sickly sweet pop that won't get into those like pop world clubs. Well, they may do, to be fair, like 20 years down the line. But that side of pop as well, I think, probably doesn't get sneered at because people understand it's for kids, maybe. But I think we're in an interesting. I think it was the Rest is Entertainment that talked about why there are no more bands anymore and why it's a case of, it's mainly solo acts and stuff like that as well. But pop music has gone. I think we're almost out of that. We've been through a stage now for a long, long time where it's a lot of kind of grime artist stuff. We're into like kind of sad singer-songwriters again now. A lot of it, like Ten a Penny. And then ones that are verging back into rock, but as solo artists, like Sam Fender and things like that, people like that are, and then to a lesser extent than rock, but like Lewis Capaldi and people like that, like these singer-songwritery types that are a bit sad. That's kind of what pop is evolving, like that sickly sweet pop. I don't know if you get as much anymore, and I don't know if that's dying out, or that might just be my my exposure to it. Like, does that still exist? I'm not sure.
I can't think of anyone. Like, even when I think of the popular pop acts, like your Chapel Roan and Olivia Rodrigo and those, they're not really pop in the traditional sense of the word. They're very much hooked onto more of a rock scene. And I think even someone like Capaldi, who is very much softer, I do think like he ties himself to not necessarily the music, but the attitude of that kind of music, I think. It's interesting because, like, whenever, especially in the UK, whenever the country has gone through times of upheaval, when we've had political bullshit going on, the 80s, for example, like, good art has been made, especially in the music scene. Like, there's been stuff rallying against it. And we kind of feel like we've lost that a little bit. Like, I don't know what aggressive anti-political message art is being made now. Like, I don't think there is any, or at least none that's breaking through.
Yeah, I feel, because I haven't done one of these for a while, we haven't really talked about Kneecap that much, but I think Kneecap are a reaction to what's going on as opposed to a response, if that makes any sense in this. Like, I don't think what they're doing is like groundbreaking in terms of an art or an anti-establishment as their music, but the statements that they're making, their shows and everything, I think are very powerful. And people, a lot of people are talking about what's going on because of Kneecap. But you're right. Like, when we look back and you think of, you think back to when artists and bands have made political statements, I don't see that now, but maybe they didn't at the time. But you think of some of the big, even bands like The Clash or anyone like that, who you wouldn't necessarily attribute on face value to being like politically rooted and stuff, but they very much were. Do you really get that now? I'm not sure. But in terms of like pop music and its the kind of influence on the scene and stuff like that, I think it's a difficult one because the whole thing about making your own music, does that weigh into the legitimacy of an artist to you? Does it matter if they don't write their own music, in your opinion?
I think it depends on what type of music they're doing. Like, I don't know. I think if you're Rufus Wainwright, for example, and you're singing someone else's songs, it probably feels a little bit cheaper than if you are Olivia Rodrigo singing. I know she writes her own stuff, but like, as a comparison, I think she could get away with it, whereas he couldn't. So I do think it matters probably where you are in your career as well. I think when you've been going a while, you can evolve and grow and take ownership of your own stuff. And like, I think going back to the Arctic Monkeys, to bring it full circle almost, because they started online doing their own stuff, it gave them a legitimacy when their first album came out that a lot of other bands would have had to struggle to get.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's a good point. Finally, from the question's point of view, quite a cut and dry one. What is the best use of a cowbell in a song in history, in your opinion?
It is the Beastie Boys, "Hey Ladies."
Okay, wow. That was not
Yeah.
where I was going with this question. However, I like the answer. The Beastie Boys, God, do you think that the Beastie Boys, when you look back in the annals, when the aliens come and take over and they hear the Beastie Boys, do you think that they will be looked at fondly by history and time?
I do. I think the Beastie Boys might be the best of us.
Okay.
Like, politically and musically, like, they're just on the right side of the
Yeah.
wire, and I really like the Beastie Boys. They somehow straddle the traditional older hip hop sound and the new. Obviously, I know they haven't done anything since Ad Rock passed away, but they they're old and they're new, and I think that there are very few bands who've managed to, or even any acts in hip hop. There aren't many who manage to have a career that lasts and leaves a legacy. Like, one of my issues with hip hop is very much that it's the song of the week. Like,
Mm.
this song's a banger for 12 months, and then something else replaces it. There are very few that are like, might be the greatest song of all time. But the Beastie Boys have got that in their locker. They have got some of the best.
Do you think history runs the risk with the Beastie Boys, though, of them being remembered more of a Lonely Island inspiration than a hip hop inspiration?
A little bit, but I think the Beastie Boys were in on the joke.
Mm.
Like,
Yes.
"Fight for Your Right to Party" was a piss take that was then adopted by bro culture, and a bit like how Bruce Springsteen's "Born in the USA" was bastardized into pro-America when it wasn't.
Yeah.
"Fight for Your Right to Party" is a similar sort of track to that one. But they were very much in on the joke. They were taking the piss out of both themselves and everybody else. And I think having that fun side to the Beasties is pretty much why they're such an excellent band.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really well put. I mean, the two sensible answers for me would have been Mississippi Queen by Mountain or Night Train by Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses, God, they really have shit the bed in their popularity over the last few years.
Them at the Aussie gig,
Yeah.
that
I
was
mean,
not fun.
it was. I mean, that was an Axl Rose issue really more than anything. But like, yeah, like they really were the biggest like band. Like, you know, when Appetite for Destruction are genuinely in the argument of one of the greatest debut albums of all time. But like, I don't think history are going to remember Guns N' Roses very fondly at all in like, 20, 30, 40 years time.
Mhm.
What I would say though is never has two cowbells been used more perfectly than in Killing in the Name of by Rage Against the Machine.
I was gonna ask you, where does that one stand for you?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like, you see those like memes of people that like are in the pool and they'll just like do the air drum perfectly to like a song. That's like that bit in. If that's on the radio on my car, I'm air drumming those cowbells when they come on. Like, it's without question, it's there. But I mean, the realistic answer is probably Mississippi Queen by Mountain, which is another example of where there'll be a generation of people that knows their entire music catalog from Guitar Hero, and I fall into that crowd. I was like that brought so much music to my attention,
Mm.
that series of games, and I won't apologize for it either.
It did a good job for, like, probably 6 months, and it was the biggest thing in the world for those 6 months. And now, like, do they still do the games? I genuinely have
No,
no idea.
they're on about bringing them back, and it's this. I've even still got it here. I think I might have lent it to someone. No, I haven't. Um, they changed the guitar to, instead of it being coloured buttons, there was an up and a down and like across 3 frets, and it like that was the jump the shark moment for Guitar Hero. It really went downhill after that. Yeah, I mean, like Guitar Hero 2 and 3 were just unright. They were the best things going. And I know you're going to roll your eyes because you hate them, but like they brought out a Metallica version. But I think it was one of the first ones they did it, and that's the perfect band for Guitar Hero, isn't it? In terms of like a corporate add-on.
Yeah.
it's going to be Metallica. And that was unbelievable, to the point where I might go and steal my Xbox 360 back off my mother-in-law, who has it, believe it or not, so I can play it again. But there we go. So we're going to move on to Music Club and talk about an album from back in the day and discuss its legitimacy. So we are talking about Hadouken, who were a British, well, Wikipedia has them as a dance punk band, which I think is not true at all. I think they fell into that like new rave scene that came and went as quickly, you know. That was basically them and Klaxons. There were a few others that never had that kind of the commercial side, that mixed kind of electronica dance and then like indie, the indie side of things as well. I saw Hadouken play in a uni like freshers week at, I think it was like Leicester University, in like a union halls or something like that. After they'd released the album we're going to talk about, which is Music for an Accelerated Culture, which was released, I think it was 2007, back end of 2007 into 2008. So they were kind of described as grindy, which I'm guessing is like a play on grime and indie. There are definite like rap elements, not rap, but I don't know how you describe it. It's grime, I guess, in a way, elements to the songs with a mix of like an electronica side of things. Had you heard this album before I suggested it, Andy?
No, I got confused. I thought I had, and what I was actually thinking of was Enter Shikiri.
Okay. Now, yes, they were the other kind of element of this side of music, but they very soon went into the rockier side of things than Hadouken did, who went kind of a more electronic way. So you were going into this with kind of fresh ears. They actually got their breakthrough through Mike Skinner of the Streets, who give them radio play when he was taken over for Zane Lowe, which it's mad that like one tiny thing can like spurn these albums that just come out of nowhere. But that was indie back then, wasn't it? Really, it was like there were Ted a Penny, like bands were just flying in and flying out, never to be seen again. Like sadly, like the Rakes, R.I.P., who just kind of churned out 3 albums and then just disappeared from the ether.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? I didn't realise that was how they got their big break. But when I was listening to what was the name of this album again?
Music for an Accelerated Culture.
Yeah. When I was listening to this, there were elements I thought, this is a bit streetsy.
Yeah.
Like, there's bits of it, like, hand on heart, didn't really enjoy it. Not really my cup of tea. But the bits that I didn't dislike were the bits that I thought, oh, that's got a street feel to it. So you saying that, I can completely see why Mike Skinner might think this will be worth a play.
There are some really interesting, to me, and not necessarily in a good way, interesting mixes on this album of straight up pop and straight up kind of dance, and then like angry kind of rock and punky-ish elements to it. But I think that they come together so clumsily on this album that it there are all these elements that just don't mix very well at all and curdle almost in the jar.
That was why I struggled with it, because I just kind of felt like I wanted them to narrow down what they were going for and go for that, which I listened to a little bit of the next album, and it did feel like they were a little bit more focused, whereas the first track, Get Smashed Gate Crash, on this one, and it was just proper full-on EDM shit, and then punky vocals, and then almost grime, the way that they were like stumbling through their words, and it felt unfocused, and it was all over the place. I'm like, this is just too much of a clash going on in this, and not in a good way. And I felt the album had that throughout. Like it was too much, and there was no through line with it.
And the thing is, you can have these like mixes of these genres that are thrown together really like that, and it worked. Like we did Mindless Self-Indulgence before, and that was kind of that. There's loads of these different genres thrown in together, but actually it works in many ways. Whereas this did like this album to me, listening back to it now, is the definition for me of a guilty pleasure, because I know it's not good, but I enjoy it. Like people say guilty pleasure, and they like, but they're really good songs. They're just like, it's a bit embarrassing to like them.
Yeah.
That's not a guilty pleasure. That's like, it's a good song. Just get over yourself. Whereas this isn't a great album at all, but I still quite enjoy it. There's a few songs on there that I think, like Liquid Lives, for example. It's kind of a song about, it goes through like these really like short stories of people that have drunk themselves or done drugs and stuff like that, and basically come a cropper. And there's some elements like sing-alongy catchy bits to that. Mr. Misfortune, Spend Your Life. There are some okay kind of songs in there, but for the most part, I just think to myself, what a mess this his album is. It's like, to say it's like unfocused is probably the absolute best way to describe it. Like, this is going to sound really flippant and kind of insensitive. This is kind of what I imagine ADHD feels like in many ways, in the sense that there's no ability to focus in on one thing. It feels very chaotic.
So much going on, and like it does feel like we're going down one road, and then all of a sudden there's just a handbrake turn, and all of a sudden it's completely different. I've just looked, and it does say that this had 3 separate producers. Now, I don't know if they were working in tandem or what,
Okay, that's
but I kind of feel like a single producer could have helped them sort of like wrangle it together into a better, just like a better sound, a better vision, a better path that they weren't taking, because it was just such a scattergun approach to, we've just got all these tracks, let's just throw them at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
I couldn't even tell you if I enjoyed any of the songs, because it was just so much going on. Like there's bits where I'm like, oh, this is all right, but then it moves on to something else. I'm like, oh, is that the same song? Is that something? It's just, I just want them to calm the fuck down and give me something a little bit more focused.
Yeah, I hear that. It's funny actually, because I'd said to you in a message that the second album, which I didn't realize not commercially, like the critics absolutely panned the second album, which surprises me, because I think it is a lot more focused, and it verges into the electronic side a lot more. There's a lot less of this like angry rap element to it as well, but people have panned the album kind of for that reason, that they've lost a bit of that aggressive tone, which I thought
Would work in its favor.
yeah, it would work in its favor. Like, it feels like a much more mature album, but then I guess it's then in the wake then, so okay, so they're moving away from that like aggressive rap sound, so now they're moving into like the Prodigy's wheelhouse and other bands of that nature, and then they're certainly not them. So if you were held at gunpoint, is there anyone that you would recommend this album to? Do you think there was a music fan out there that it would be enjoyable for?
I don't think so, because it just keeps falling in between genre. Like, I couldn't say someone who likes Hot Chip or Simeon versus Monkey, like, you probably wouldn't enjoy it because of the rappier side of things. But then I don't think anyone who liked the rappier side of things would enjoy it for the real heavy EDM shit that they just force in there. The closest I could think of maybe were like Forward Russia, who was such a niche band from a similar time frame that there's probably no Forward Russia fans left in existence, to be honest.
I need you. When we get out of recording this, I'm gonna message Stu and I say, can you do a condensed version of this when Stu can give us his thoughts? Because I'd love to hear them on this album. I'd love to know what he thinks about it, because I think he could love it or I think he could hate it. I don't think there's an in between. I don't think he'll go, it was all right. He's either going to absolutely love it or hate it.
Yeah, because he hates Jamie T, and like there's vocally there's elements of Jamie T. I don't think he'll like this. Yeah, we need to get into listen because I'm intrigued. But yeah, it's not for me, and I don't know anyone who would like this who probably wasn't there then.
Yeah. It's funny because one of the songs, I think it's Crank It Up, as there's references to like MSN, making your own ringtone.
Yes.
And like instantly my lower back started hurting and my knees started cracking and stuff like that. And I was like, oh God, this is like, this hurts. This does now.
One thing that I really hated when I looked on Wikipedia is one of their members' nickname is Pilo because her name's Rice. And I thought, oh, you cunt.
Yeah.
That's fucking horrendous.
That says it all, really, doesn't it?
It does.
There you go. Well, that is the end of Musicast. Hope you enjoyed this whistle stop tour through many different genres. What is next on the lineup for cage fighting, Andy?
So next week we're having a break because I'm at the wrestling, so having a week off, and then we'll be back doing our fall preview. I shouldn't say fall because that's fucking American. Our autumn preview. We'll be looking September through to December, and we'll be watching Nick Cage in a scorter setup.
Is it Forbidden Door? Am I right?
It is, yeah.
Oh,
so we've got some Mexican and some Japanese fellas coming over soon.
Amazing. Look forward to seeing that. I'm so far behind because my nefarious ways of watching TV has expired, and I can't, and I need to get to payday to really do it. So
I have to do mine this week.
Yes, it's always because of the start of the season, isn't it? Really, like my expires, but there we go. Listen, we really hope you enjoy this cage fighting at Cage Fighting Pod on the socials. If there's anything that you'd like to go through on the next Musicast episode, let us know. We should try and get a games cast in and get Stu to pull his weight as well soon, because we enjoyed the few times we've done those as well. But from me, really nice to hang out with you, Andy, and talk about music. And
yeah, it's been a while.
Hope everybody enjoyed it at home. Give us some feedback. It would be lovely.
Said lovely.
Ciao, everybody. Goodbye.